Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist Season 10, Episode 6, Dr. Locke and Perillos, I guess, conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, it seemingly was part two before this
Yeah.
episode, but I mean, it said conclusion, so I think that's the end.
Yeah, it feels like it's the end based on this episode. It's also the end for another character and a very sad spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean, Wujing is collecting people on the blacklist and then killing them off. I don't know what is going on over there.
No, we're going to talk a little bit about Wu Jing's plan of action. Denbei's got a big story, obviously, with Dr. Perillos. There's a lot to get into.
And Reddington was barely in this episode.
Oh boy, let's dive into the commenters to see what they think. No, okay, well go ahead, hit that subscribe button. We will be here throughout the season. Of course, a lot of you guys know this already with reviews, previews, theories, so much more good stuff. Hopefully we are escalating towards some big surprises.
Yeah, I really hope so, because one of the things for me that has been lacking this season is the amount of Reddington that we're getting. There's been a few episodes where we've had lots of him, and then there's been episodes like this where it's like, you don't really see him for 25 minutes until, more than half the episode is over, and then he's just sprinkled a little bit. And for a big episode like this that's, all about Dembe, somebody that, Reddington loves, and Vesco, what's going on with him, I expected to see more Reddington hands-on with this.
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising. I mean, if we're comparing this episode to the Dockery affair last week's, hot mess, look at the dumpster on fire going down the street, like this one is clearly a step above that. I think there's a lot of even Dembe just not being around Reddington. At least it reminds me of Reddington, and I will take that over whatever was going on last time. But
Yeah.
yeah, like it is a little bit bizarre that you've got James Spader, who's obviously the star of the show, who's an executive producer, who's
Mhm.
involved in virtually all of these different things, and I think especially with a smaller core cast this season than what we've had in the past, you expect even more of the people you've come to know and love, and we all know and love Reddington, and
Yeah.
obviously him springing into action to save Dembe, more of that would have been appreciated.
Yes, absolutely. I know that they sort of with the big reveal that I'm sure we were all so
Yeah.
shocked by, that Vesco was actually working with Reddington this whole time to get information from Wujing to bring it back or whatever. They did have that line where Robert was like, "Don't send me a parachute this time. Like if you do that, we won't be friends anymore," kind of thing. So I get that they've put some of that in there, but that's not like Reddington to have people he cares about that he knows is in danger. He knows something's going on, and he's not pushing forward as quickly or as engaged as he normally is. I know it's a bit of a different time and situation with this stuff, but I don't know. So far this season, we're 6 episodes in. He's barely been in this season.
I
And that's all I'll complain about it until next time when he's not in the next episode. No, hopefully he will be.
I hope he's in every frame of
Knock on
everybody.
wood.
No, I know. It's been a little bit frustrating, and I'm sure there will be more Reddington centric stuff eventually, but it's kind of the question of how long are we going to have to wait, especially given the way this episode ends, where Robert Vesco dead, he's been killed by Wujing and his people, and it all kind of reverberates this theme that I do want this show to dive a little bit more into. I know they've done it before, but it's this notion of if you get close to Reddington, you're probably going to die at some point, and it is probably not going to happen in a great way. Let's see here. We have Marvin, who is gone. Mr. Kaplan, gone.
Liz.
Dead. Robert, now gone. Like, there's just so many people. I mean, even like WeChat and Mirsa, they might as well be dead at this point because they're just like off in oblivion. Nobody even seems to remember they exist.
Yeah, I think this was also not too much of a surprise to anybody that Vesco is dead. I mean, they were gonna wrap up that storyline somehow. I didn't think he was gonna be around all season long, feeding information back from Wujing. I mean, the Wujing character is a pretty smart guy, and he's been able to figure things out fairly fast. I think the biggest question mark I had was with Laverne Cox's character, and I know that they just can't keep her around all season either. I mean, she's a fairly large star.
Yeah.
And, I was glad to see her back, but at the same time, it was like she ended up sort of just up against the same wall that we already saw her up against the first time that she was on the show. There was nothing that was really different in her approach or what was going on or what she was really asking. Like, it all just felt like I was watching the same episode again. And I was kind of hoping that maybe her time in jail, she figured some other things out so that when she was broken out and she was, trying to get information out of Dembe, that there might have been tiny breaks or something a little bit different. So when we end up at the end of this episode where Wujing's like, get rid of her, we don't need her anymore, I was like, really? You don't need that kind of a skill on your team for real? Like, how many other blacklisters are you going to pick up that might be like Robert, that is going to be still, loyal to Reddington, that you might need her for? I feel like it would have been a better sort of, if they had put in a line there where Wujing was just like, she's going up against, Dembe and Reddington twice, and she's failed twice. You're fired. That it was more of like, she's not good at her job. She's not able to do what we need from her. Get rid of her. Instead of just like, we don't have any use for her anymore. Of course you do.
Yeah, even if you're not going after Reddington or Dip, there's got to be somebody else that you could use her skill for.
Yes.
Even, like, this is the other thing, too, is that eventually, if you're Wujing, I mean, you have to at least envision that somewhere down the road you actually defeat Reddington. And then once you defeat Reddington, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Like, isn't it a good idea to have, like, a couple of these people sort of just, like, stored away on retainer that you can bring them back at sort of need be? Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. They weren't going to keep Laverne Cox around long term. Like, I get that. We didn't even necessarily have to see her down the road. I think, just for me, my frustration mostly with having Dr. Perillos back at this point is just that, yeah, there wasn't anything new when it comes to her technique, but I also think there wasn't anything new when it came to the Dembe-centric content. Like, I wish that through all this, I don't want Dembe to obviously confess to anything, but I think there could have been an opportunity to give us like a couple of different wrinkles to his backstory that maybe we hadn't heard about yet, that maybe we could have understood more of, his early days, his life before Reddington, like some other. Instead, it really kind of hit on this, oh, you were with Reddington, you're now with the FBI. What happened here? Why did it's like, we already know. We already, like, this is something. I know Dr. Perilous wasn't around for all of this, but it's just like,
but we were.
Yeah, we've already seen this story. So it's just like, let's get another story in here. Like, let's try to find a way to mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like throughout this whole episode, the only thing that Wujing was able to kind of get information on was Cooper. Like, his big winning thing in this whole episode was Dembe's cell phone to be able to be like, to send that message to Cooper and get back that one word understood. But now he's like, okay, who is this guy? Let's really dig deep into this. How is he connected to the task force? How deeply connected to the task force is he? That's really the only thing that's come out of this episode that's moving that whole plot forward, and he didn't really need Dembe for any of it. He just got the cell phone and got the information.
Wujing, who would be really good at getting information, maybe out of Harold Cooper, should you ever procure him? Dr. Perillos.
I know, right? It's so weird that he is collecting people off this blacklist, especially someone like her that has, this technique that does work on most people, that's not going to be like, okay, it didn't work in this instance, but, keep her on speed dial. Like, she might be somebody who, you don't have to see everybody he collects there every minute. Like, we know that he's collected a few other people that we haven't seen, like, since he's collected them. So it would have been all right to just let her go on.
One thing that I kind of like the show is doing, and they could amp this up to another level to me, is like early on in the episode when you have Wujing sort of being like, I've gotten this person. It is Dr. Perillos. And they like do this like flashback. See, it reminds me a lot of just like these old like superhero comics where they're just like, this villain has been busted out of prison and you know him, you fear him. It is Dr. Octopus. I really want them to sort of embrace that and have a little bit more fun. Like, this goes back to something that, we talked about here and there. It's like, there's still great characters, there's great individual moments on the show, but it feels like right now there's a little bit of that like stylistic soul that's just not here with this season. And I don't know if that's something that really left when Boken Camp did, because I kind of feel like it was still there here and there last season, but it just, there's like an inner circle to Reddington and this story that just feels a little bit hollow and just feels a little bit missing right now, where the plot is very sort of surface level and we can kind of all see a lot of the turns coming.
I think the biggest thing for me too that I'm waiting for, or I was hoping for, but I mean, Wujing keeps killing off everybody on the blacklist,
Yeah.
is I was waiting for sort of that moment where everyone's together. There's a big group of blacklisters from the past that are all together with Wujing, like sort of a meeting of the minds of seeing people like, the freelancer meeting, Madeline and Gina, and everybody's together. And it's like this sort of weird, crazy, like, yeah, Reddington did this to me. Yeah, he did this to me. Let's all get together sort of thing. It's like Reddington's worst nightmare. But for some reason, it's just, I don't know what Wujing is trying to do. Like, I understand what he has said he's trying to do. He's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm trying to find the post office so I can get the encrypted sort of list of, how Reddington's done this. I get the immunity agreement to get this information so that I can tell who you're killing everybody off. Like, if you're trying to prove this, you need to prove it to somebody who cares. And like, you're killing off all the people who care.
Wujing is just a little bit too measured, in my opinion, at this point. Like, I need him to be more crazy. Here's what I need him to do. I need Neville Townsend to come back from the dead.
No, we already have a Neville Townsend.
No, we need to have Neville Townsend inject Wujing with a little bit of the crazy. He needs to be a little bit just more crazy and unhinged and willing to sort of just make he's almost too calculated for his own good.
I feel like he is kind of unhinged because he's making these decisions that I'm just like, I don't understand what you're doing. Like this episode and being like, okay, we don't need the good doctor anymore. So, get rid of her. It's just like, just let her go and call her when you need her. Like, you're supposed to be building a group.
Okay, here is really it's a little bit of a beef. It's a missed opportunity. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, is that the end of this episode, we obviously see Vesco's dead. We see Reddington. We see him saying, bring the body. It's just, I wanted something to linger a little bit more with that. It felt very abrupt. It's like, oh, Robert's dead. Black screen, end credits. It's just that, this is somebody who obviously we don't necessarily care about Vesco as much as a lot of the other people who have been killed over the years. I mean, he's only been in, I don't know, like a half dozen episodes.
I cared about Vesco.
I like him.
I like him, and I like their relationship. And especially after just having this episode, 2 episodes ago, where it was like, yeah, they're on this adventure, this treasure hunt, and all these memories and seeing the back and forth. I also wanted to see more of, oh, Vesco's dead. Let's see more of Reddington and more of how he's feeling about it, and just more Reddington.
Like that's the important thing. Like, this to Reddington, this is far more than somebody who has appeared in a half dozen episodes. Like, This is somebody who has been established as really his mentor, like really the person who got him sort of his start in the criminal world. And even if he hasn't been a part of like his day-to-day life in years or whatever else, like, there was an opportunity for a great sort of Spader performance or monologue or something like, yeah, I mean, we all remember sort of the monologue after Glenn's death, like
Yes.
early, and like how powerful that was. And
Yes.
I just wanted there to be a little bit of something more where it kind of makes Reddington realize more his own mortality, bring us back to kind of those themes that we've talked about where everybody who has been close to him is dead. Like, is this why he's keeping such a distance from a lot of people and like couch surfing and being very, very aloof? Like, I know they don't like to get us inside Reddington's head, but it's kind of important here or there.
Yeah, and they have given us a lot of insight into him over the years, but this season is definitely missing that.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Vesco just because he's a good foil for Reddington. Stacy Keach is always a good actor. I
Yeah, he's
think
great.
he had his moment in the sun, and it's just like the rest of this episode. It felt like it could have been great. Like, that's what I'm frustrated about, and also. Wrestler and Sia had absolutely nothing to do the entirety of it.
No, they had absolutely nothing to do, and it was kind of a bit of a disappointing moment to have Sia kind of be like, "Wow, I really didn't know it was gonna kind of be like this." It's like you're a spy. Like you may not have as much field experience, but like you've been trained and have some experience to sort of have seen some stuff. Like it just feels like, this is the craziest thing you've ever seen, everything that went on with the doctor and Dembe. It's just like, well, then why was she brought onto the task force?
All right, so there we have it. Dr. Perillos' conclusion. It is concluded, but
Yep.
We'll have episode 7's preview coming up here very, very soon. Let's hope this season really gets going in high gear, because I mean there is a lot of potential. It's just like we're waiting for those big things to happen.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you guys so much. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you here next time.